Good evening, Doctor Who fans. It belongs in a museum. Yes. There's a lot to say about this book, which I've read in full yesterday. Ever the completest, of course, which I am. I have to say, I was rather impressed. One must remember that this is from someone's perspective who was born in the 1970s. It's a remarkable insight into the machinations of the 1960s BBC, of course, in this book. Now, of course, thank you, Neil Cole, for this. It's signed, of course, by the author inside. Scribe. So very grateful. Yeah, it really gives me great hope for the reasoning behind Neil's whole raison d'etre of having the museum in the first place. I didn't realise this obviously stemmed very much from his childhood, and it's something that was always there in the background and just came to fruition when the timing was right. Just goes to show us, doesn't it, Doctor Who fans, that when the timing's right, we tend to do something because it's our destiny, essentially. Right, so today I visited the Museum of Sci-Fi myself and picked up the latest issue of the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi archive files. This is the Mandrel head, of course, from the Tom Baker story. Now, to deal with this book. Okay, so obviously we have a foreword from Margot Hayhoe, who has a lot of high regard for what Neil's done with. Again, it's all to do with his art, because Neil's very much an artist, so the art itself is the contextual thing for bringing in this collecting bug. Really, I suppose in a way, the collecting bug started in the first place by collecting props, merchandise, this sort of thing. Then it escalated to getting props. But then the combination of art and all those skills that it accrued since that time meant that it meant the job of curator, curating the curator that Neil Coe's now become. He had to learn all those skills. I guess that's life telling him. He had to learn all those skills to be able to do what he's done, which is essentially renew junk that was thrown out by the BBC. A lot of it broken. Actually, that's one of the highlights of this, which is well sort of mentioned as an important linchpin of the whole collecting thing with the museum, was to buy broken stuff and to fix it, which he could because he was a sculptor, etc. So yeah, that's more than that though. There's more of a holistic vibe to this entire book. So we've got again, for example, Imagineering, Imagineers. We have obviously the things that we all collect here, but obviously Neil took it to the next level. He started to get his props, which I believe, if I remember rightly, speaking to him, started with the Cyber Scout from actually, I know he's renewing the Pterodactyl and everything else, but the Cyber Scout was, I believe, the main thing he bought originally from Colin Baker's story, Attack of the Cybermen. But yes, anyway, in essence, we have it's not an episode guide, by the way, of the 1960s Patrick Troughton era. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of references in this to items that have survived or in some way have not felt the purge of the BBC or all the rest of it and all the junkings that has survived. And the only thing I think you mentioned was that certain stories, like for example the Croutons, there's nothing exists. So it very much doesn't get much of a mention, apart from mentioning the fact it was a story that was made. But again, a lot of references to props, telesnaps to John Cura, which of course we know instrumental in all these reconstructions that were made, especially with the animations. So essential, really, that he did that. One thing I remember is, you know, you mentioned, Neil, in this book about the recording being on cassette tape. Now, the 1960s, as I recall it, we all had reel-to-reel tape. These Philips things are about so big, and they're reel-to-reel tape. So I think even Ian Levine had 8-track tape, didn't he, or something, when he recorded his Doctor Who episodes and, you know, wrote them out and then transcribed them, etc. So maybe, because I just remember asking Google Nest that when did audio cassettes start? It was 1965 around, it became a lot of in the public domain a lot, so maybe it was, but I think those initial years in 1963 was mainly reel-to-reel tape in my summation, I think. At any rate, it's a beautiful book. This is, again, lavishly illustrated. Again, we talk about Neil sculpting there. There's references to the stories. I'll pick, for example, my favourite, which of course is The Evil of the Daleks. Here we are. Beautiful illustrations done by Neil to accompany talking about what has survived. In this case, the port. Just a minute. The spike. The spike portcullis spike. There were 3 of them, and he was given first choice. Became available. I think I've seen them on eBay going for $4,000 and stuff. Expensive. Whoa. And then we got all the mention of the photographs of the props themselves. For example, Power of the Daleks. The Hertz Daleks there survives, minus its slats around the middle, for example. So yes, a very interesting read. I read the entire book, as I said yesterday. It was very informative. If you want to get this book, you can by the museum, by emailing Chris with the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi. So do so if you want to get that, if it's available, because they're soon running out of copies. I think there's very few left. But there are other sources for this book, aren't there, as well, other companies, I think. Again, the Mandrel, Museum of Classic Sci-Fi magazine. Pick up the latest issue, which I did. I was given this copy by Chris, because Neil wasn't there today. So thank you, Chris. It's really generous. Beautiful. Again, beautifully illustrated with the mandrels, a lot of details about the prop itself. So I'm sure you can look forward to that. Let's just hope one day they find, Neil, the VC-10 from the faceless ones for you. That would be something to see in the museum, wouldn't it? That aeroplane. Anyway, get yourself to the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi, open over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend. Yeah, so take care, and that book, something else.